For folks who don't know me, I'm Hillary Hayden. I am the organizing director at the Trade Justice Education Fund, and we are a national organization working to stop the damage of corporate-centered trade deals and promote a positive vision for international trade. Just as a quick personal note, I've been on maternity leave since mid-December, so if we have not met yet, I look forward to working with you. Happy to see a lot of familiar faces here today as I'm jumping back in. These Trade Justice Power Hour calls happen every third Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern and cover a wide range of educational topics about trade policy for activists across the country. I do want to note quickly that these calls are not intended as press briefings. So if you're a member of the press, I'm happy to chat with you separately, but this is not the place for those press questions. Just by way of an agenda quickly for today's call, I'm going to give a little bit of framing around where things stand with the USMCA campaign and the timeline. I'm going to share some context for the exciting cross-border days of solidarity that are coming up. And then I'm going to be handing things over to the event organizers from each of the events to talk about the incredible work that they've been doing. And I think with that, we'll just jump in. So, folks that have been on these calls regularly know that over the past year, we've spent tons of time focused on President Trump's rewrite of the North American Free Trade Agreement, which was rebranded as the U.S. Mexico-Canada Agreement, or the USMCA. Over that time, we've dug into a whole bunch of concerns. We've talked about labor rights, we've talked about environmental protections and the digital trade rules and migration and transparency and tons of other topics. When Trump signed the USMCA, he made a bunch of sweeping promises about what the agreement was going to deliver. He said it was going to bring good jobs pouring back into the United States. He called it the greatest trade deal ever written. We know now, 6 years in, with 6 years of lived experience and 6 years of actual data, that by a lot of the measures that matter to working families, we're actually worse off under Trump's USMCA deal than we were under the original NAFTA. The trade deficit is way up under the USMCA. Corporations are still using the deal to ship good-paying jobs to Mexico to take advantage of labor rights abuses and lax pollution controls and low wages. Uh, One small silver lining in the USMCA relative to NAFTA, which honestly I suspect that Trump expected a future administration to deal with rather than himself. I don't think he really expected a 4 year gap between his two presidencies. That one silver lining is that the USMCA has this built-in mandatory 6 year review, requiring all three countries to come back to the table and decide whether to extend the pact as written, to renegotiate it, or to walk away from it altogether. We're now less than 6 weeks out from that 6 year review deadline on July 1st, when the US, Mexico, and Canada are going to begin making that decision about how they want to renegotiate the deal, whether they want to extend the pact, etc. But it's really important to understand that they're not waiting until that date, that July 1st date, to decide their positions. Their positions are being decided right now. I don't know. Are other folks getting the echo? Clayton, can you take the slide down? I'm gonna take a look. Okay. Are other folks getting an echo? Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna keep going. Um, so they're not waiting until the July 1st date to stake out their negotiating positions. Those conversations are happening right now. And the decisions are being made right now. So that's why it's been really critical for people to speak out in ways that a lot of you have been speaking out over the past year, through public comments, through meetings with members of Congress, through letters, outreach, and more. This is not going to come as a big surprise to anybody here, but despite all the talk from the president about fixing trade, the few details about the USMCA renegotiation that have been released so far show that the Trump administration is still prioritizing big tech, big ag, big pharma, and other corporate interests rather than the interests of working people in trade negotiations. Back in December, the president published a list of so-called trade irritants that it wants the Mexican and Canadian governments to resolve more or less unilaterally. It expanded on that list in its National Trade Estimate report, which was published on March 31st. The trade irritants that it's pushing Mexico and Canada to remove as part of the USMCA negotiations are not the things that we've been asking for. They're not prioritizing living wage standards or meaningful environmental enforcement or other policies that would create jobs or raise wages or protect the environment. Instead, They're pressuring Mexico and Canada to change their energy policies, to change financial policies, food safety policies, health policies, especially online privacy and other digital policies, changes to trade that have long been demanded by big ag, big oil, big tech, Wall Street, and others. And frankly, this is just an unacceptable priority list if we're talking about fixing the USMCA. So today we're focused on what is the most important opportunity yet to raise our voices ahead of the USMCA renegotiation, the cross-border days of solidarity against Trump's free trade agenda. In coordination with 100 groups across the US, I think actually we were at 115 of them last week. We're going to be coming together this May and June for cross-border demonstrations along the US-Canada and US-Mexico borders. The goal of these actions is simple, but it's a powerful one. To stand together across borders and across movements to say that we've had enough of Trump's rigged trade rules. We're calling on our governments to put people and communities ahead of corporate interess. We're rejecting a system that pits workers across borders against each other in a race to the bottom for wages, for labor standards, and for environmental protections. And we're affirming something equally important, that working people across all three countries share common interests like good paying jobs, like fair wages, healthy environment, and basic human dignity. We know that trade does not have to be a zero-sum game between countries. The real divide is not the US versus Canada versus Mexico, but it's corporate power and against working people in all three countries. These upcoming days of solidarity represent the largest cross-border mobilization against Trump's rigged trade agenda to date. And if enough of us speak out, we can shine a big enough spotlight on the USMCA, so that the Trump administration and other governments can't get away with advancing a deal that puts corporate interests first while leaving working people in the lurch. So today we're going to hear directly from the event coordinators about what they're planning. We're going to talk about how you can help maximize the impact of these actions, whether you're able to attend in person or support from afar. We are going to have time for some questions, and after we talk through some action steps. So please put questions in the Q&A feature for me or for the speakers. And with that, I'm going to hand it off first, I think, to Julie to talk about the event that Washington Fair Trade Coalition's been working on. Julie, I know your event's coming up. Excited to hear what you have to say.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Julie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with the Washington Fair Trade Coalition. And really excited to talk a bit about what we're doing right around the corner here in the Pacific Northwest and what we've been doing. So I'm going to share some slides here. Um, and I'm going to assume folks can see these unless someone tells me otherwise. So yeah, I mean, we've been organizing under the banner like Pacific Northwest Cross-Border Days of Solidarity. And something that's been really important to us as we organize this is recognizing that like this is, much bigger than like, one event, one very exciting event, but, we've been kind of with our organizing committee, working on really a campaign around what it looks like to build power around cross-border and cross-issue solidarity in the face of rigged trade and for a people's trade agenda. Really building off of the really rich and incredible history of trade justice organizing here in the Pacific Northwest. Building off the legacy of the Battle of Seattle in '99 and lots of other trade fights that have happened more recently than that. Really, again, building power. And so, as you can see down here, there's some really incredible photos from some of our lead-up educational events that we were doing with community, bringing community together and having conversations about these things. So what I really like to see, I don't know if folks are able to see it, it might be small, but this right here on the left was our first lead-up event, and it had like a couple of signatures on our banner. And then by the end, folks were like struggling to find space. So these were really spaces where we gathered and talked about what does trade justice look like, and also the important intersections, right? Because trade justice is so inextricably linked with so many issues, right? Workers' rights. We talked a lot about farm workers' rights, specifically here in Washington State, international solidarity, environmental protection, migrant defense, tech justice, and so much more. And so, these were the conversations we were having about building power, culminating in our May 30th Day of Solidarity, which is right around the corner, super exciting. This will be a space where we kind of continue these conversations about how we, strengthen a grassroots movement around, not just confronting Trump and previous administration's corporate right to trade, but also how do we build a vision of trade that we want to see, right? How do we build a people's trade agenda? And so our event is really going to be a celebration, which is like much needed, I think, especially during this time, like a celebration of cross-border and cross issue solidarity where we come together in joy and in power. And so up here in Washington and Canada, we have a really awesome park that actually is on the border. And so folks, it's called Peace Arch Park, and folks from both sides, from the US side and from Canada, can come together and congregate and celebrate together. So that's what we're going to be doing again, May 30th. That's next Saturday at Peace Arch Park, coming together. We're going to have food, we're going to have music. We're actually going to open up the program with the Resistance Choir, which I'm very excited about. We're going to have speakers from all of these incredible community organizations to, again, talk about the incredible work that they're doing in cross-border solidarity. There's all these really incredible organizations that we're working with, as you can see in the endorsements page. Again, everyone from Migrant Defense, some of the biggest unions in the state, queer rights organizations, Tech Justice, International Solidarity, all of that great stuff. And so, yeah, we're really excited. And again, it'll also be a space to continue this community conversation. That'll be a big part of our event as well, is how do we continue to build power past this campaign, past this date, and how can we show up in community together and help each other's campaigns. So it'll be a really, really exciting event. Hope to see some folks there. The URL is on the screen here, tinyurl.com/solidarydaysrsvp if you're interested. We're coordinating some carpool up and down, I guess, if you're on the Canadian side. So hope to see some folks there. We're also looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, you can sign up through that link as well. I'm sure Hillary will also be sending all of these links. And we're actually hosting a peacekeeping training this Saturday, a couple in the Seattle and Bellingham areas. So if you're interested in learning tools to de-escalate and further build solidarity, you can sign up for that as well through that link. So hope to see some of you there. And just really excited for the opportunity to continue these incredible conversations about how we confront corporate rig trade and build a better trade agenda.
Thank you so much, Julie. And I know I'm putting you on the spot and I should have done this sooner, but Julie actually already had an art build for her event because it's coming up soon. And maybe I can talk her into sharing some of the very cool trilingual signs that they made at their event. Maybe the Instagram post link, if you could, in the chat, Julie, at some point.
I
It
will
would be
do that.
awesome. Thank
I'll
you
do
so
that.
much. Very exciting. Thank you so much, Julie. Next, we're going to hear from Jesse and Gerard about the event that they're planning. Go ahead.
Hey everyone, my name is Jesse Lenny. I'm with the New York Trade Justice Coalition. I'm working with my friend Gerard from Trade Justice Network, who you heard from momentarily. We'll go back and forth. The details of our event are we are having a rally at the Freedom Park in Buffalo and across the river in Fort Erie on June 20th at 2 p.m. We're going to be doing it simultaneously, which I'm very excited about. We're going to have speakers, labor speakers, environmental speakers, speakers on digital trade. We're working on a speaker to connect trade with what's going on in New York at the UN, the nuclear proliferation work that's going on at the UN, which I'm excited about. I think one of the things that is I've protested in Canada, but I've never organized an event simultaneously with someone in Canada. So I'll turn it over to Gerard to talk about what's going on his side of the river.
Yep. Thanks, Jesse. I'm Gerard DeTrolio, he, him pronouns, and I'm with the Trade Justice Network here in Canada. And we've obviously organizing on the Canadian side, which will be at the Niagara River Public Boat Launch at 184 Niagara Boulevard in Fort Erie, Ontario, which is in the Niagara region. If you just put in that address into Google or visit the website, you can find it because it's like, just a green space on the end of the river. Obviously, we're going to be separated by the Niagara River when we're doing everything like that. But we plan on hopefully hooking up some USB speakers or something like that, so we can like talk over like WhatsApp or Signal and just hook it up to the speakers, and then that way we can sort of communicate with each other over the over the river. And so yeah, it's the same idea that Jesse was talking about, getting a couple speakers talking about trade, talking about solidarity, and tying this all together, and why we shouldn't be um, divided on this issue. And if you have any questions, you're on the Canadian side, maybe looking for a carpool or willing to help set up a carpool, you can also email me at tradejusticenetwork@gmail.com.
We are still trying to build our coalition, but we've gotten some significant help from the Labor Council in Buffalo. We're working with a housing group called Push Buffalo. Jim Anderson, my friend Jim Anderson, is active in peace action, and we're working with a great environmental group called the Clean Air Coalition, one of the best grassroots organizing groups in the country, I think. And so we're excited about that. And I wanted to ask Gerard if there's groups on that should be mentioned on the Canadian side that we're working with.
Yeah, I have been in contact with the Niagara Region Labor Council and the Hamilton Region Labor Council. Is Hamilton's right next door to the Niagara region. Also, the United Steelworkers, both at Hamilton and Niagara, as well as Unifor, which represents auto workers in Canada who are really feeling the pinch right now in both Hamilton and Niagara.
That's great. I'm particularly excited, as I mentioned, to work with Gerard and to do this simultaneously. I think that'll be a great hook to get people involved. I think people, especially in Buffalo, while we understand there might be hard feelings from our friends in Canada based on the administration that we've allowed to take power, we have a strong kinship with our neighbors in Canada. I'm excited to do it at this particular spot. The Freedom Park has been renamed the Freedom Park in honor of the Underground Railroad, and so I hope to find a way to honor that. I'm also hoping that this particular action will help move forward a campaign that Clean Air is working on to stop a data center in the area. I'm excited that they're working on that, and that hopefully we can be of some help. And I'd love to. There's been a lot of work around ICE in upstate New York, and I'd like to connect. I'd like to inform that discussion with sort of how it's sort of our country's trade policies over the last 30 years that have been in large part created the situation that we're in now, and scapegoating the people that have been forced out of their homes and away from their families is not the way to go. So, Gerard, you want to add anything before we turn it back over to Hillary?
No, just that I'm also really excited to be working with Jesse and the New York Trade Justice Coalition. It's been great planning so far, and I think it's going to be a really great event.
Thanks, Gerard. That's all, Hillary.
Thank you so much, Jesse and Gerard. That's very exciting. I think I'm going to pass things off next to Dylan. Dylan, would you please tell us about the event that you and others have been working on in El Paso?
Sure. Thanks, Hillary. Dylan Corbett here. Great to be with you. Thanks to my colleagues on the call, everyone with Trade Justice. I'm with the Hope Border Institute down here in El Paso, Texas. And really grateful to join everybody for this Power Hour. Here in El Paso, this is going to be a real community effort. Our local organizations and our faith communities have stepped into the breach created by unfair trade policies. And under the leadership of one of El Paso's local organizers, a great organizer, Semele de Azatlan, these community organizations are coming together and are really the ones that are organizing our local day of action. Let me talk, though, about why this matters to us, this day of action. El Paso was one of the communities that was hit hardest by NAFTA. It's not just that we lost jobs, families and neighborhoods experienced a generational impact, and in many ways, the trauma is still with us. We contend with deliberate, long-term institutional neglect in many of the neighborhoods that were hollowed out by the job losses that we experienced. We face serious public health consequences from the heavy truck traffic at our ports of entry. And NAFTA, in effect, turbocharged the construction of the border wall, which is a structure that divides our binational community here at the border, and it stands for the whole country as a symbol of our failed and inhumane immigration policies. So when I say that this day matters to us here in El Paso, I mean it. It's local people here that are responding to global policy. It's our neighbors who are trying to rebuild what was broken. So let me tell you a little bit about our local day of action. It's called the Día de Acción Internacional para Fortalecer Alianzas. We're going to begin on Saturday, June 20th at 9 a.m. at Café Mayapan. And for those of you who don't know, Café Mayapan is a social enterprise, and it was actually born in the wake of the destruction of NAFTA. It's in one of the industrial buildings that was left behind after NAFTA, in one of El Paso's hardest hit neighborhoods, the Chamizal. Cafe Mayapan returns its profits to the local community. It serves food that's grown nearby, and it practices what we call justice on your plate. That's the kind of local solutions that we need, and we believe that local communities like El Paso have the solutions to global inequality and failed trade policy. So after breakfast at Cafe Mayapan, we'll have some popular education sessions, some opportunities, some powerful presentations from many of our local leaders, including our local scholars. Among our speakers will be Dr. Kathy Scout, who's long studied trade inequality and issues affecting us here at the border. We'll also have Lorena Andrade, who's the executive director of La Mujer Obrera, which is a local grassroots organization which is led by the mothers, by the sisters, by the daughters who have been most impacted by trade injustice. These women, they're reweaving in the wake of the wounds of NAFTA. Demuestran todos los días que sí, otro mundo sí es posible. Their work isn't abstract, it builds power from the ground up. And then at 11 o'clock, we'll march. We're going to march from Café Mayapan to the International Bridge here in El Paso. And there we're going to stand with community leaders and workers from our sister city, Ciudad Juárez, over in Mexico. And for us, that binational dimension is really, really important. Walls and policies of inequality, they may try to divide us, but we are still one community. We're tenacious, we're resilient, we're committed to a shared future. We seek the same things: good jobs, clean air and water, the right to remain in our communities, not to be forced to move, and the right to belong. So here's my invitation to all of you on the call today. Join us if you can make it to El Paso Saturday, June 20th. Come for the food, for the learning, for the march, for the chance to stand in solidarity with our neighbors in Mexico. The work isn't easy. It's not going to be brief, but it's necessary. We're not going to heal these wounds overnight or with silence. We heal them with presence, with organized action, and with solidarity that extends across borders. So thanks to everybody. I look forward to seeing you here in El Paso. Bring comfortable shoes, bring your questions, bring your courage, and let's march together. Thank you.
Dylan, thank you so much. The photos and report backs that we've been getting from some of the El Paso organizing have been incredible. Really, really excited for that event. I think next we're going to hear from Will Wilchko. What's going on in San Diego, Will?
Hi, thanks for having me here. We've been working really hard to organize this great teaching in San Diego. I think the consensus that we all have is that working people for far too long have been pitted against each other. We feel that this event is a really important opportunity to bring working people together for this important teaching where we can build together to kind of meet the moment that we're in right now. Solidarity across borders is critical, especially as like these corporations and the 1% work hard to pit working people kind of against each other. And so we're going to be doing a little rally and a teach-in at Chicano Park Museum and Cultural Center. There will be food there. We're trying to get some live music as well. Some of the folks that we've been working with on the ground are Labor Council for Latin American Advancement in San Diego, Sierra Club in San Diego, Labor Solidarity Action Network, and there's a whole host of organizations that have been really amazing in kind of helping us plan for this important event. And for me, I think the real kind of benefit of this is that we're bringing people together from areas and sectors that haven't always been connected, and this is really a great opportunity for folks to connect with each other, to learn from each other, and to plan and build together. So I see this as not just one event, but a series of events that'll continue to happen, and organizing that'll continue to happen. And we'd really love for folks who are interested to join us and be part of this, and help us build this movement in this critical time. And so you'll get the links for that. And I hope to see folks who are around here, who are in California. I hope to see you there.
Thank you so much, Will. Last but most certainly not least, Tanya and Alberto, please tell us about the event that you are working on.
Okay, hi everybody, thank you very much. We are working in several events. On the past days, we participate on the March of the 1st of May and the Labor Day in Mexico City, and we read our main communication as the trinational statement in which we express our main demands in front of the Constitutional Plaza, that is the Zócalo in the center of Mexico City. And also we have been doing a webinar all the Thursdays on this month in different topics related with the USMCA as investments in the first Thursday. The second one was about agriculture and the impacts of the USMCA in Mexico. And in this, today we had our third session in environmental struggles because of the USMCA, where we have great testimonies of not just communities, but also unions, as the minority union that are in a struggle against the investments that have advanced in Mexico, not taking care of the human rights of the people, and even giving some threats for the communities in some relationships with the crime, or with the crime, organized crime. And and on the next days, we are planning to do different demonstrations. We are working in a new statement in national to ask to the Mexico City authorities and the president to not sign the agreement without a consultation, a bigger consultation, so that they postpone the agreement for the next year, and they could do a real consultation and participatory process with the communities that really could take on account our main proposals. And so and we will try to collect all the signatures of people and organizations on the next weeks. And then on the 26th, we're gonna do a press conference in the Constitutional Plaza again in Mexico City to give all this statement with all the signs, to ask to the presidency of Mexico to stop the signing of the agreement on this year. That will be the 26th of June. And also some weeks before, in the context of the World Cup inauguration, like the start, we will do a demonstration that we are working, and a press conference on the 9th of June that Tanya is gonna talk more about that.
Thank you, Alberto. Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya. I'm with Global Exchange. And, like Alberto said, we've been coordinating with a large network of organizations in Mexico, covering all topics from agriculture, migration, armed violence. And we see the need for us to take a stand against the unjust and, frankly, lack of participation that the public has had in the process of the USMCA. And while all of this is happening, the World Cup is also taking, place in Mexico City on June 11th. And so, like Alberto said, we are coordinating with organizations like Greenpeace Mexico, the Assembly on the USMCA, which me and Alberto are a part of, Project World Cup Spotlight. And so we really want to shine a light on the issues, the intersectional issues that the USMCA touches when it comes to migration, justice for workers, and as well as armed violence and other marginalized communities that are affected by this trade agreement. And so if I think most of the people here are based in the US, but if you know people in Mexico City, if they want to mobilize, meet us on June 9th. We're going to be, like Alberto said, holding a press conference, and we're going to be doing a huge action, which details are pending, but we're planning on doing either a huge banner or inflatable, soccer balls to with statistics of the harms of the USMCA, and how government accountability is so important. And so that is our unifying message, and we would, be more than happy to invite you to this action in Mexico City. So thank you all for being here, and I appreciate our participation. Thanks.
Very exciting. Thank you so much, Tanya and Alberto, for sharing about your event. I want to give a big thanks to all the folks that came to talk about their event. This has been really exciting to hear about all the different local flavors that these events are taking on. I want to turn quickly to a few action steps that folks here can take to help maximize the impact of the upcoming events, and then we will take some questions. So please, again, put those questions in the Q&A. We're going to get to a few of those toward the end of the call. So in terms of ways that folks can help maximize the impact of the events, first, if you live in any of the areas where there are events happening or you're close enough that you're able to travel there, please go to daysofsolidarity.org. That link was in the chat. I think Clayton's going to put it in the chat one more time. But go to that website, RSVP to the event that you can make it to. There are some options there also about carpooling and a few other options. We really need folks to RSVP now, though, so that we can figure out how to get those resources to the places that there's interest and need. Again, go to that link. All the events are listed, and RSVP for the one that you are able to attend. Now, for folks that are not near one of those actions, please take a moment to go to the petition on that website. I think Clayton is going to put that link in the chat as well. That petition calls on the governments of all three countries to ensure that new or renegotiated trade deals prioritize the needs of people on the planet over billionaires and corporations. We need as many folks as possible to sign that petition because we are planning to deliver it to trade negotiators in future actions. So please, again, go to daysofsolidarity.org, sign that petition if you haven't already, and share it with folks in your circle that you think might be interested in signing. The last thing here, please help us spread the word about these events. I think Clayton is again going to share some social media links in the chat just to help get the word out on social media about all the events that are coming up. So just to recap, visit daysofsolidarity.org and take those three actions. Sign up for an event near you, sign the petition, spread the word. Taking these steps is gonna help toward just making sure we maximize the reach and get these events out in front of everybody who can make it. A couple other things I want to be sure to flag for folks. If you want to organize an event in your community, please reach out. In addition to the events that we've talked about today, there's one in the works in Montreal, there's one in the works in Detroit. There is a film screening happening in Brooklyn. We would love to include your event in our promotional materials. We may be able to help you in other ways, but if you're interested in having an event in your community, please reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation with you about it. Yeah, please take a moment to take those actions. I think this is the moment, right? We're less than 6 weeks out from July 1st. We really want to be sure to shine a spotlight um, on Trump's free trade agenda ahead of the trade negotiations starting in July. Um, the only other quick flag I have is that there is also a form on the website where organizations can endorse. So if your organization has not endorsed yet, please fill out that form. Somebody from our organization will be in touch with you. We'll try to get all the endorsing organizations up to date on the website. I think most of them are there now. Um, awesome. Thank you, Clayton, for putting all those links in the chat. We are going to turn to the Q&A. So please, again, put questions in the Q&A feature. We're going to get to as many of those as we can. One question that I'm gonna throw to a couple folks on this call if they have answers to it, and if not, I think Trade Justice's executive director may also be here, and he may also be able to help. But this question says, President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico seems like a strong leader. Have you heard statements about how she would like to reform the deal? Also, the Canadian Prime Minister seems willing to speak out against President Trump. Has he said anything about the trade negotiations? I don't know Tanya, Alberto, or Gerard, if any of you would like to take a try at that question. I'm also happy to pass it to Arthur, but wanted to give you guys the chance to um, offer any wisdom you have from working with folks in Canada or Mexico.
We can say something. Yes, of course. We have had like a good dialogue with the Ministry of Economy in Mexico. We know that they are not at this moment doing strong statements in front of the agreement. They know that it's a difficult moment to get new good conditions in a negotiation with President Trump. So now, and we are not really agree with that. What we know is that they are trying to take care of that the agreement stay almost as it is now. So that's their main position. Our position as movements and social organizations is that we need to get better human rights and conditions in this trade agreement. So that is what we know. They haven't said much or doing strong statements because it's a very complex moment that I think we could all understand in some way.
So what's going on in Canada right now is a little weird and confusing. We don't really have any definitive statements except for like maybe we'll make a deal, but also there seems to be some tit for tat going on between the Americans and the Canadian governments. The Americans are sort of saying that Canada is avoiding the negotiating table and everything like that. And then so and I don't know exactly the actual state of things in between Mexico and the United States, but you know the way that the Americans are playing it off to the Canadian government is that they're close to a deal with Mexico, but Canada is still a far way off. So there's some little divide and conquer going on there. In terms of what's going to happen, I don't know. And I think a lot of the labor movement, at least that I've been in contact with, is concerned about concessions from the Canadian government, which is a very real possibility, even though sort of the line of the labor movement in Canada has been quite unified on this, saying that no deal is better than a bad deal. And there's actually some decent polling of the Canadian public that sort of agrees with this. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are scared. So it's hard to say right now, but I I think even if the public doesn't want a bad deal, I'm concerned that we're on the fence here about maybe that's going to end up happening after some humming and hawing. So we have to be vigilant about that and just keep the pressure on our government not to cave on this.
Thank you so much, Gerard and Alberto. I am going to pass that same question to Arthur just to see if there's anything additionally that he'd like to share. Arthur, the question is President Claudia Sheinbaum seems like a strong leader. Have you heard statements from her about how she'd like to reform the deal? What about the Canadian Prime Minister? What do we know about how they're approaching the negotiations?
Yeah, thanks, Hillary. I think Alberto and Gerard both said it really well. The Trump administration right now is trying to, frankly, downplay the USMCA and pretend that that they might walk away with it. Walk away from it, I think for a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, to increase their negotiating leverage with the Canadian and Mexican governments and also with members of Congress who are very beholden to corporate donors and want to maintain the trade status quo. So, that if they're pretending that, hey, we might walk away, that increases their negotiating leverage to get changes made, which, as we know, and as what you said at the beginning, most of the changes they're pushing for are changes that would benefit big tech, big pharma, big ag. They're not changes that would benefit, people or the planet. And at the same time, I think the Trump administration also recognizes that the USMCA is a liability for them politically. That, they promised this was the greatest trade deal ever, that it was going to bring jobs pouring into the United States. It's done the opposite. The trade deficit is way down relative to the original NAFTA. It continues the race to the bottom. And so, the Canadian and Mexican governments, I mean, as we've heard, are very invested in just trying to maintain the status quo, smooth things over. The Trump administration is pushing very, very hard for them to make, concessions, early harvest deals, things that they can announce to make it seem like Trump has made some big win for working people when really the only substantive changes being made are for big tech, big pharma, big ag, and billionaire CEOs. Next week, U.S. trade negotiators are back in Mexico. We've heard rumors that there could be, early harvest deals announced, I mean, as soon as next week, and potentially others in the lead up to July 1st. These would be concessions that the Mexican government would be making, I mean, basically unilaterally just to keep Trump appeased. Some of them may sound good on paper or might even be like a small step forward. I think the most substantive ones I fear will be ones that, are bad for working people on the planet and advance a corporate agenda. Certainly, there's no expectation that in the next few weeks they're going to do things like include strong wage standards, facility specific environmental enforcement, a rollback of the giveaways to big tech, or any of the core things that people in all three countries have been pushing for. So I hope that helps.
Very helpful. Thank you, Arthur. Um, Thank you for this question. Can you tell us more about the other events? I would be more than happy to talk to you about the other events. There's one happening in Montreal that's going to be kind of a rally and an educational event with some speakers. That event is also going to have a cultural component and some fun revolutionary musical performances. I think they were talking about sort of like parody songs that folks are going to perform at that event. So I think that's going to be really fun. There is an event happening in Detroit that's in the early planning stages with the Sierra Club and Mighty Earth. They're not sure yet. That could look like a film screening and some kind of like discussion panel. It may also look a little bit more like a labor and environmental panel and discussion and networking space, which could also be fun. I think I will have more details on that in the next week. Um, Yes, I see Sarah's jumping in about the event in Brooklyn. There's a film screening of a WTO documentary and a panel discussion happening in Brooklyn. I know that California Trade Justice and San Francisco Living Wage Coalition are in the early processes of planning a press rally in San Francisco. All that's to say that these events are all kind of taking on their own life based on the organizations working on it and their location. But there's tons of room for more. So if there's anyone on this call that's thinking, about putting on their own event, I'm more than happy to talk with you about that. So please reach out. Materials. Okay, this is also a great question. If you are thinking about doing an event of your own, I absolutely have template materials that folks can use for different things. I have an outreach toolkit that you can use if you're trying to work turnout for your event. We have some social media graphics that would be very easy to adapt for new events. We also have some template like press materials and media advisory, things like that that folks might find useful if you were thinking about planning your own event. Um, Thank you to folks that are putting questions in the Q&A. Let me take a look again. Um, how quickly do you expect the negotiations to move on the USMCA? This is a pretty good question. The short answer is that I'm not 100% sure how quickly the negotiations are going to move, but I don't expect them to have a fully negotiated deal before the midterms. Um, the thing I'll say, and I said it at the top of this call, is again that they are using this right now, right? In real time, they're staking out negotiation positions. They're figuring out what those positions are going to be. They're not waiting until July 1st. So it is a really important moment right now for us to be making our voices heard. I also think that it's there's potential benefit in the deal not coming until after the midterms, just in terms of whatever the makeup of the new Congress might be and that kind of thing, should there ever be a vote on the product of a renegotiation process. So it's a great question. Um, any other questions that folks have? I'm going to take one more look into the chat and be sure. Oh, okay. This is also a good question. Can you talk to us more about the potential action for the petition? I don't have hard details about what that's going to look like right now. What I can tell you is that in past trade negotiations, they have these negotiating rounds in specific cities, right? And so there's these opportunities for civil society to talk about what they want to see in a trade negotiation. There's also opportunities to hand petitions over to negotiators and that kind of thing. We've done some really cool actions in the past, and I anticipate that there are going to be cool opportunities again with this campaign. So please, again, go ahead and sign that petition on daysofsolidarity.org. How can we follow the progress of the negotiations? This is also a good question. The main thing I'll say is this is the big thing that trade justice is going to be working on for at least the rest of this year. So I encourage folks to just stay plugged into the work that we're doing. There's also a couple lists where articles get shared. So if you would like to be put on those lists, please reach out to me and I will make sure that your email ends up on that list so that you can get updates and articles and things like that as we share them. It's a great question. Any other questions that folks have? Awesome. Well, I want to give one last big thank you to all of our amazing event organizers that were able to join today, share about the great work that they're doing to prepare for the Days of Solidarity. I want to thank folks for joining the call. Either this afternoon or tomorrow morning, you're going to get a follow-up email from me that has a whole bunch of links and materials and resources that we talked about today. So please be on the lookout for that. Please, again, visit the Days of Solidarity website, RSVP, sign the petition, fill out the endorsement form if you're with an organization. All those links will be in that follow-up email. With that, have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much.